Greetings to one and all. This will be my fourth tutorial on how to play a Ventrue character vampire in Vampire the Masquerade role-playing game, and today I will resume telling you about the history of the Ventrue clan. However, even though I played the game for a while, I am no expert. So if you see me make a mistake, feel free to point it out in the comments. In the last episode, Artemis and Lysander had fled the destruction of Sparta and came to Italy. But other Ventrue had already established themselves there, most notably Colot. Colot and his Ventrue followed in the wake of Rome's legions and would seize the spoils of war for themselves. Thus they ruled Rome unseen. But Colot had bigger plans. He wanted to attract other clans to Rome, but he never wanted any of those clans to grow powerful enough to threaten the Ventrue. So he came up with a cunning idea, the Eternal Senate. Colot announced to other clans that the Eternal Senate would be the shadow government of Rome, and that any kindred could join by a majority vote of currently sitting senators. And he also gave them one more piece of bait, tripling the vote. If, for example, a Zamitzi wanted to join, votes of current Zamitzi senators counted 3 times. On the surface, this seemed very appealing, and many kindred flocked to Rome to join Colot in ruling the growing Roman Empire, or even to supplant him. But before they knew it, the Senate had grown to such a scale that joining it conventional ways was no longer possible, even with tripling the votes of the candidates' clanmates. The result was a lot of trading of boons and favors, and a lot of dealings under the table to get the new senator in, and even then the elected senator would end up being a compromise, someone inexperienced or someone burdened with boons to utter impotency. Through it all, the Ventrue thrived, mastering these kinds of political games and ensuring their own supremacy in the Senate. Colot had what princes of the Camarilla could only dream about. The Ventrue were undefied, undisputed, and all others were squabbling or incompetent, or else laboring under debts they owed, and no one was strong enough to challenge him. It was at that point that Artemis and Lysander had arrived. Colot's favorite child Camilla managed to capture Lysander. The two of them talked, then exchanged ideas, then brainstormed, and finally decided to ally and bring greatness to the Ventrue clan. While Colot was merely reacting to the mortal events, Camilla wanted to shape them. Officially, when Colot heard what they intended, he stepped down and acknowledged the superiority of their rule. Unofficially, no one really buys that. Regardless, Camilla ascends to the throne of Rome, with Lysander as his second. Camilla's approach was brilliant. He continued Colot's practice in the Eternal Senate, collecting boons and ruling from the shadows, but he also cultivated mortals who wanted what he wanted, and had them promote his designs for him. He became wealthy, powerful, and ultimately decadent. Meanwhile, Lysander traveled the borders of Rome and was Camilla's link to Roman neighbors. It was during one of those trips that Lysander learned of Carthage, where Bruja and Bali ruled as open gods. The kindred of Carthage were led by a Bruja Methuselah Troile, who is said to have diablerized their antediluvian, or maybe even was their antediluvian. It's unclear. Some even said that it was he who beheaded Ventrue before the gates of the second city. Next to him, there was also his Bali partner and lover Moloch. Together, they were hoping to make Carthage into a third city, the spiritual successor to the first and second cities, where vampires and humans would live openly side by side. Even the Banu Hakim had good relations with them. However, Moloch's influence apparently corrupted Troile, and by the time Lysander got there, he saw massive blood sacrifices of women and children, and various infernalistic rituals which horrified him. Having witnessed that, Lysander returned to Rome and told Camilla about what he saw. It is likely that he embellished the story a bit. He had fought Bruja of Athens before, and he resented them with a passion. But even so, Camilla did not care. Camilla himself was in a relationship with the philosopher Tanit Baal Sahar, who claimed he was a Bruja, but he was most likely a Bali too. And it was he who introduced Camilla to the path of desire, later known as the path of sin, a way of dealing with the beast through extreme indulgence. But then Tanit Baal was called away by his sire Tanit, his ship sank in the storm, and he was never seen again. It left Camilla heartbroken. Meanwhile, Malkavian Prince Alcias ruled Sicily, and he somehow got word that Carthage had plans to attack him. Together with Lysander, Artemis, and the Toreador Methuselah Arikel, they managed to convince Camilla to do a preemptive strike against Carthage. Rome was victorious in this battle, and Carthage pulled back. That was the Second Bruja War. Camilla was pleaded to finish them off, but he refused, because Africa had proven deadly for any Ventrue to set foot there. The Third Bruja War came about because Hannibal of Carthage spectacularly terrorized Rome for 10 years. When Hannibal was at last killed and Carthage forces pulled back into Africa, they left behind their Spanish territories, hoping to appease Rome. They did not appease Rome. In the following decades, Camilla had formed an alliance to fight the threat of Carthage, not just with the Malkavians, but also with La Sombra, Cappadocians, as well as Toreador. The Toreador had been aloof, supporting both Rome and Carthage, until Camilla bribed them with influence in both countries. For that, the Toreador Methuselah Helena gave him crucial tactical information. Also, a Carthage defector Cybele joined Camilla's cause. She claimed to be a Malkavian, but she was most likely a Bali also. It was during this time that Camilla assumed the title Titus Venturus Camillus, the Ventrue Prince of Rome, gaining almost absolute power in the Eternal Senate. Some vampire scholars believe this was the moment in history when the Ventrue assumed their lofty mantle of leadership of all clans, and that up until then they had been keepers of vampire knowledge and history and the laws handed down by Cain himself. 50 years after Hannibal, Rome besieged the city of Carthage itself. Humans had a quick victory, but it was the largest battle of vampires in recorded history, lasting for many nights. Artemis led the charge and was torn apart by frenzied Bruja. Alcias succumbed to his wounds and slipped into torpor. Camilla stayed in Rome, but he had sent his favorite child Tiberius, who slew a nest of Assamites before they killed him. Lysander was scarred but alive. It was said that in the last moments of battle, Troile embraced Moloch and together they melded into the earth to escape, but defector Cybele placed a powerful blood magic on the area, sealing them in torpor forever. In the end, Roman kindred were victorious. They razed the city to the ground and salted the earth to contain the horrors of infernalistic rituals, and so nothing would grow there ever again. The Ventrue are proud of this. They're proud to be descendants of those who razed Carthage to the ground. However, this is also why Ventrue and Bruja hate each other today, and many Bruja elders today romanticize the lost dream of the third city that was supposed to be Carthage. In the centuries that followed, Camilla grew tired of his absolute power and became increasingly detached from the affairs of state, mourning the loss of his lover Tanit Baal Sahar. In his distractions, the other clans in the Senate began to seize power for themselves and threaten the Ventrue. So Camilla reformed the clan into what it is today. He established rules, traditions, and procedures, and brought all of his fellow Ventrue in line. When Nero set fire to the city of Rome, Camilla slipped into torpor. The Eternal Senate swiftly fell apart, and supposedly only a remnant survived, slipping into the shadows and calling themselves the Incono. Lysander continued ruling Byzantium for a while, until at last he too vanished, never to be seen again. Governance of Byzantium was taken over by a triumvirate of kindred, a Ventrue, a Toreador, and a Zamizi, who ruled from Constantinople, until Abali-Sosres married the Black, burned the city to the ground in her pursuit of vengeance. Then came the period known as the War of Princes. Without Rome's controlling influence, unchecked vampires were unleashed upon unsuspecting humanity. Many warred against each other openly, like the newly emerged Tremere and the Zamizi, and others supposedly killed their respective antediluvians during this time. That is the end of my second part of the Ventrue history and my fourth tutorial. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you again soon.